Understanding Love Help Men Talk. This week, Jon Saunders, entrepreneur, leadership coach and podcaster, shares a beautiful and vulnerable conversation. Topics like money, worries, family, grief, failure, marriage, parenting, self-compassion and faith. I was truly honoured by Jon's openness and highly recommend sending this to the males in your life. I hope you enjoy it and it travels to help people that need it. Sharing the love is the main purpose of the project. Trigger warning, suicide and grief is mentioned in this conversation. So if you're feeling a little bit tender today, maybe this isn't the right conversation for you. It is filled with lots of love as well and lots of joy and lots of Welsh accents. My accent, I must have just been riffing with Jon's beautiful Welsh accent. So by the end of it, I hope you don't need subtitles because my accent is singing to the best of its Welsh capacity. Brilliant. We will get going then. So who was the first person that taught you love?
Whether there's lots of people in my life that have been influential. And, my dad particularly is a softie in the way that, he had to bring up 5 kids. I'm one of 5, so I didn't really see him a lot when I was younger, and he's quite open with that. But what my dad has got is a massive heart. It's something that I've inherited from him. And I think the love bit, my mum's an absolute cracker, in a different way, but she wouldn't show it as much as my dad. But my dad definitely 100% has taught me how to love others, but also love yourself. He's a very simple guy in the way that he likes what he likes. But he's very much, if you're going to do something, he does everything for other people. He puts himself second every time. And I think there's a lot of that for me, that's the person that's been more influential than anyone is probably my dad with that. Just about, like I say, if you put someone else first, you're going to get the results you want back. And that's something I've always led my life on. But yeah, just to sort of love someone else. He never, and I that's how I see love is what can I do for others? Not for financial gain back or anything else back, but what can I do for others that's going to put them in a better position? Because that's what I think love is all about. It's about sort of how do you express it and give, So yeah, I would say the most influential person has been my dad on that front.
Seeing that from your dad, seeing that it's about other people and it's about giving, that's filtered into the work you do. Coaching is about other people. Leadership is all about other people. The best leaders, that's what they do. That's what they do so well.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the lessons I've learned over the last, 10, 15, 20 years is you can't give what you haven't got. And that lesson of filling your own pot first is something that, especially, when we had 29, I know we had some great times in 29 Park Place, but when that went through, I think that was a big example of sort of giving too much. Giving too much of ourselves to other people in a way that if I haven't got it, I can't give it. So I think there's been a lot of soul searching in the last sort of 5 years on how to actually fill my pot up, and with filling my pot up, I've been able to then give more to other people. And that's the bit through coaching that I've been able to, that's why I love this journey I'm on now. I found a path that has resonated because it is about making someone happier and just making someone have a good, better day than they would have had. And, I've been excited about coming on this because I knew that, we've done a bit of traveling the last few days. And I just thought, what, I can't wait to have a chat with Georgina about love because it's such a great topic to talk about, and that's what it's about. It's about spreading what you've got and giving it. But yeah, that's the big lesson for me over the last few years is looking after myself, and making sure that I've loved myself,
Yeah, and just for the listener, to give them some context around, you had an amazing bar in Cardiff, which you set up, And we used to do morning raves from there, Monday like Friday, me and you.
Yeah, brilliant.
It was such an impressive venue. It felt like a chain. And I guess that came with a cost.
I suppose the end of it, I fell out of love, and my passion had gone, and I think when that goes and that spark goes, I think that's the point at which when I did finally hand the towel in, it was more due to that really than anything else. It wasn't the financials weren't working, but it was more the fact that I'd actually talking about love. I just fell out of love with it. It was a big hit for me when I lost when we had to close it up, and it was also that first failure really I'd sort of had as well in my life that sort of hit me and kicked me in the nuts really. But again, I look back and I was talking about it yesterday to somebody that if that hadn't happened, I wouldn't be sat here as happy as I am now. So, everything that happens in life, especially that, it's really given me the tools to kick on and find. It's like that. You've got to, I talk about kissing frogs, and you've got to kiss loads of frogs, in my opinion, and find out which one's going to turn into either a prince or a princess. But you've got to keep kissing them, haven't you? And that wasn't the right frog for me. It wasn't the frog I wanted to. But in essence, I know now. I know where I don't want to be. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. It's the learning, isn't it? And I think we've got such a finite way of looking at things. It's like, I've set this up. It must become a great success. The end.
Yeah.
And
100%.
Life doesn't work like that. Like I've had businesses, I've had to close businesses. What has happened in my life over the last couple of years, there's been sadness, there's been pain, there's been joy. It's the duality of life. And that's and love is that duality as well. It's not easy to love. It's not an easy thing to do. So I think being brave and going, do you know what? This isn't working for me at the moment. And doing the action is something that I know is really inspiring to others. You could have stayed doing what you were doing, being very miserable, and the whole world, like the walls could have crumbled around you.
100%. I think that, and again, I suppose talking about sort of that crack on sort of mentality is about cracking on for me was more, it was one step. It wasn't like as though I went, I'm still grieving now to a point. I've come out the back end of it, but I'm still grieving that, every time I walk past it or any time I go near it or someone mentions it, it sort of still kicks you in the balls, and you think, well, but at that point at which taking that one step, steps are different for everyone, aren't they? But it's important that you take the step, and again, going back to that coaching bit, it's something I find really rewarding is getting people to take that one step, and my step is different to everyone else's. And, my step back then was literally just to crack on and get on with it, get another job and do it. Because I had 3 kids and still got 3 kids to support. Like I had to do something. Otherwise, it was going to be free fall, like you say. But it did take a bit of guts to do it. But when the decision was made and when it was done and it was finished, it was like, I got to get on. But coming back to that love bit, my family, they just showed me a lot of love around that time, I talked about that, the day I closed it, and, they all came round. I called them all up and they all came round, and we all did one day of moving everything out. And there was so much love at that point, being shown, it's heartwarming, because I suppose it's what I would do for anyone, and I would have done that for anyone as well. But when you get it back to you and you give, when someone does it to you, and you reflect on it, you think, you know what? There's a lot of love in this family, and I love being part of it, because that's what it's all about. When the chips are down, that's where you see the real other person as well as yourself.
Totally. I think family is well. When you're going through a really difficult time, the people that show up, the people that are around you, the people you have in your life, you're just like, oh, this is what life's about. This is actually what matters. This is the real stuff. So apart from your family, what are your loves?
I love connecting. I really love meeting new people, and I'm fascinated by people, and I just get energy in that way. So but I love my sport. I've got to keep myself active. Otherwise, something that's integral to me that I just find that's my passion. Getting out, getting some fresh air, putting myself through a real workout. But my energy piece and where I find, I'm just fascinated by people. So I love that interaction bit. I'm very similar, to yourself on that. That's where I find, that's my happy place. And I just think, that's what fills my pot up anyway. That's what really gets me going and that's the bit I love is I just love being around people.
I found in the lockdown very difficult for me, to be surrounded with people, and when you get so much, and I'm not interested in the small talk. I don't really want to. I want to get into the juice straight away.
Yeah.
I must be quite intense to some people. They must be like, "Wow, I only came in to wanted to talk to you about something," and then you're like straight asking them what their desires and hopes and dreams are. But that's where the juice is for me. That's where the connection is. And you can have the most amazing conversations with people, which is.
Yeah. And that's why that's why you've got a podcast. That's why I've got a podcast as well. I don't do it financially. Someone said, someone said to me the other day, what do you, when are you going to monetize it? And I was like, I really enjoy just having them around my house and having a chat. I really do. and I find that sort of, I just find how different people tell, like you say about getting to the juice. I ask them, I say awkward questions, but I'm the same as you. I want to go underneath the skin as soon as I can because I want to understand somebody a bit more and why they're doing what they're doing and what makes them tick. So definitely I've had that quite often actually. And but again, I just think we don't do it enough as we should. That long version of talking. Just
totally
just listening.
I think there's a fear around because. We're open people, John, We're open-hearted people. And for us, it's easy. If someone asks me a question, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. Do you know what I mean? Spilling it out. And some people are more guarded. And I do need to remember that. I do need to remember someone's vulnerabilities and what kind of background they've had and all of these things where sometimes you can't get to that level of a connection. But having the ability to have a meaningful conversation, a conversation where you feel that you've been listened to, sometimes involves no questioning. It just literally listen. I'm still learning how to listen, in a conversation.
Yeah, the thing for me and you, I've got a bit of a trick that I do now that if I want to listen to somebody, I've literally got to bite my tongue. And I do. I just did it then because I wanted to bust in then. I wanted to bust in on that conversation. But I've got to bite my tongue because I know, like you said, it's about the other person has got to feel like as though they've been listened to. And don't get me wrong, that is a massive thing for me. I find it really challenging. I have done. And I'm learning, like you just said, I'm learning. I'm still on that journey, right? I still am. But it's so powerful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's so powerful for someone to sit there and listen to you, and actually you feel like as though you've come away from the conversation and you feel like they have listened to you. It's when people can do it really well. I've never been very good at that. I've never been great at it, but I'm getting better all the time because I know it's what the other person needs. You know what I mean? And that's that bit where, I know it's not about me. It's about you and what you need. And Simon Sinek says it talks it really well about getting into the trenches with somebody, So I really resonate with that I've got to get into the trenches with you. You don't want me to talk. You just want me to listen.
You don't want me to fix your problem either.
Yeah,
and I think that's one of the reasons why I've set up this podcast was to do with grief, and I'm grieving, and I'll probably be grieving forever, John. That's what will happen. But you live your life with people so scared about talking to you because they can't fix you. They
No.
can't offer a solution, you know? They
No.
can't fix you. So because of that, people either don't talk to you or they're just like they're too frightened to get
Yeah.
into the juice, apart from other people that have experienced grief.
Really interesting. Really interesting. You know what? Do you mind if I just share?
Yeah.
When you just said that, there was a lady, brilliant lady, I used to be on the governing body with in my local school. And her son, about 6 years ago, it gives me goosebumps as I started talking about it actually, but her son unfortunately committed suicide. And I was sat in a park when this airplane came down, the helicopter. And I was like, I wonder what that's for. Anyway, a week later, I found out, and I used to coach this lad, football. Lovely, lovely lad. Anyway, I hadn't seen her in years. And we moved down to Brighton. And I hadn't seen her in such a long time. And I really wanted to reach out to her. And the one day, she was just stood. And I came back to Cardiff and I saw her. And I walked over the road. And I made a beeline for her. And I just opened my arms and I gave her this big hug. And her words, what she said to me is exactly what you just said was, do you know what, John? People run away from me now. People don't do that. People don't come and give me hugs anymore. They run away because they don't understand, And that bit you just said then took me to that moment. And it's such a powerful piece, isn't it?
One of my missions with this podcast, I want people to have them conversations with people. I want them to have the awkward, cringy, I really want to leave this room conversations.
Yeah.
Because they are the conversations that unfortunately people have on their deathbed. People have them when they're too late, when it's too late. And I think I can totally resonate with that woman, because it's such a difficult conversation for people. But it's only going to become a difficult conversation if we don't talk about it. We just have to practice it.
Taking me back to that point. We just stood there for 5 minutes hugging.
No.
It was such a lovely hug. And she, at that moment when she said that, and it hit me like an absolute ton of bricks, actually. I was like, well, people don't come over and give you a hug, do they? And she was like, no one gives me hugs anymore. And I was like, that's got me now. That's got me now.
And especially when she needs them the most.
Yeah. And do you know what? I think that grief piece you just spoke about is, I honestly, there's so much respect and admiration for you and your family that, how many people are going through that and how many people, I suppose it's asking the questions, it's having what questions aren't being asked and who's not doing what, isn't it? I asked that question yesterday, funny enough, in a coaching session I had, is let's open up with saying what's not being spoken about in the moment. And there was quite deep moments with that, right? And I think it's a really interesting question about what's not being spoken about in the moment and what do we need in our lives, So, yeah, do you know what? That's as soon as you said it, it took me to that point. So thank you for taking me there.
You mentioned about your dad with his big heart, and you said that he sort of role modelled loving yourself. Has loving yourself and looking after your own cup been a natural thing for you or a work in progress?
I've always had a huge heart, but I've never been really kind to myself. I never used to be very kind to myself. I think when I was in Tiger, I didn't really like the person I was, truth be told. I wasn't not a nice person. I was always being a lovable rogue. I've always been that cuddly John, but I wasn't a nice person to myself. I've had moments in my life that, I struggled. I'll be quite honest, I struggled with my kids to begin with. Looking back on it, and these questions really brought it out to me, actually, that I struggled with my son when he came along. I struggled to understand what to do with him and what exactly it looked like to love him, being quite honest. So I always struggled with that. And it took me time to get there. I didn't connect straight away. And even though I thought I was a good dad, and I like to think I am, I was never being very very nice to myself on that. I've always kicked myself to say, am I being as good as I can be? So in the past, definitely struggled with that. Found it really tough. Looking back and reflecting, at the time it was party John, and John just did what John did. But it wasn't what John did to himself. It was more the impact that had on others, And my wife's been a saint since that. But no, I've never been very, very good to myself. But recently, I found God recently. And I've converted recently, funny enough, to I'm now a Catholic. So I got married into the Catholic faith. And I've taken a journey on that the last couple of years, and I'm actually now I'm getting confirmed next month.
Really?
So,
Congratulations!
Yeah, thank you. And but the biggest lesson for me on that is looking after myself, and I love thy neighbor, but you've got to love thyself, and it's the journey I've taken that I'm very much so more in tune with loving myself than I ever have been, and that has come with being kinder to myself, and not being so like, I'm cool with this journey taking as long as it's going to take. I'm not in a major sprinting rush. It's a marathon, as my wife told me yesterday, not a sprint, and she's bang on. And life is enjoying those bits now where connecting with my kids and spending that time where, I don't have my phone on me in the night. If they see my phone on me, they know there's something wrong. I'm not the person on the phone anymore. I'm the one that wants to connect with them. And, I don't necessarily, I still could do more like we all could do, but I'm a lot less hard on myself when I miss an opportunity, So, yeah, I've gone through a real journey with that. And that's come with time. And it's come with me hurting people, and understanding that I've hurt people and not being the best dad I could ever be. And then reflecting on it, but actually doing something about it. So it's been a real journey for me, that, but much better now. I've got a big heart and I can share it,
And you can have some of that too.
100%. And I'm cool with that now. I'm cool with having my own time. I'm cool. It's not selfish to do things that I love, It's not selfish to go up the mountain and fill my pot back up, because, again, going back to, I can't fill what I haven't got. And if I haven't got it, I can't give it. I want to give. Right? I'm a giver, so I don't want to stop giving. But for that to happen, I've got to make sure that I'm in a great place. So, and I'm just in a I couldn't, I can't explain to you, put in the words really how much better I am now than I ever have been, for lots of different reasons. But that investing in myself, I definitely have done. And yeah, it's working. It's working.
And just for the listener, I think sometimes it would be good to know, what are your cues? Like, what are your little red flags? What are your warning signs when you're running on empty?
One of the main ones, like Green Lights, is a great book I've read, and I don't know, Matthew McConaughey, for me, it's about those pots. And it resonates. When I coach people, I do talk about 3 pots: family, friends, you. And I think the way I suppose the best way I can explain that is, I know when my pot isn't good enough, because my trigger sign is I know when my family's is not. When I haven't invested enough time in my family, I know then I sort of trigger and look at myself. And I know at that point I've got to spend all weekend with them. And by doing that, or I've got to go for a walk on my own. So I think I'm still not brilliant at looking and having that trigger for myself, but I'm a lot better at looking at my kids and going, do you know me this week?
Oh, wow. That's a lovely thing to say and think. That's a really lovely question to say to yourselves. Do you know me this week? Am I present for you? Am I showing up for you this week?
Yeah. And on a Friday, which I've sort of released now, whereas Fridays for me used to be 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock into work till 3, 4 in the morning. Because obviously hospitality was always, for the listeners, that's what I've always done up until now, and the coaching has taken over. But Fridays for me are a special one, just to check in with myself in the day. And in the night, like, we have a family meal, which is something that we've got a family Friday night club now, and like we do it every Friday, and we connect back together on that Friday night, which is, again, would never have happened before. I suppose that's the bit we're checking in, and so yeah, that's the question I sort of do ask. Actually, that was a really good question.
Thanks. I'm into questions, coachy questions. We can compare coachy questions.
I'm going to nick that one. I love it.
Yeah, nick away. Where's the love shortage for you in the world then? If I gave you the love shortage magic wand, where do you feel there is a love shortage?
I'm leaning into very much so at the moment is kids and children, and how people are brought up, and how they don't get the opportunity to have a say in that. I really think there's a shortage of loving themselves, kids. I think there's a struggle between sort of 10 to, or whatever age it is, to teenage years now. I think are tougher than they've ever been, just because of that love for themselves. I see kids and I just don't feel they do love themselves enough. I really do think that it's the parents loving themselves, really, to give it to the kids. And I'm not sure whether that's where I think the shortage is, and I know I've gone through circle because I've actually had to work that out in my mind, actually. So that's a bit of a realization. It's not necessarily the kids' shortage. It's probably the parents loving themselves to be able to give what they haven't got. Because I think if they gave more, again, I was talking to my mum the other day. She works for a charity, and she works with parents to get them to parent better and help them out with tools and tricks. But I said, look, what's the biggest thing, Mum, that people lack within families? And she said, John, if they go into a loving family and there's love in there, they've got every chance. And I'm like, one, that blows me away. But like, if we could just, if there was one thing I could do as a mission is to give parents the chance to love themselves more, to love their kids more. Yeah, that breaks me a bit actually thinking about it, because I don't, because I had such a loving upbringing. It's hard for me to think of anyone going into a place that hasn't got love. So that's where I think the shortage is of, going full circle. I think it's where people don't love themselves enough to give it to their kids.
Yeah, and they haven't had it role modelled, intergenerational trauma where their parents never told their parents, and also it's very difficult to parent in regards to, as you said yourself, it's hard at the beginning. You don't know what to do.
It is.
And if you haven't got a role model to go, like years ago, we all lived so close together and we could all just rely on each other, and we could go, right, that's the way my mother does it. Okay, I'll copy that. I'll role model that. But a lot of people are left on their own. People work really, really hard because it's really expensive to live. And there's so many other outside pressures that impact parenting. Like, I have to explain to Kitty, she's 4, I have to explain the concept of work most days because she doesn't want to go to nursery. She has no interest in going to nursery. She wants to stay with me and Dave. Of course she does. She's 4. But I have to explain to her, for us to go on holiday, for me to buy food, I've got to work, and Daddy has to work as well. And it's just sad that is the case, because and there's so much of challenge and difficulty. I think love just goes on the back seat, goes on the back shelf.
I think that's what we've become, is all very functional in the way we do things, and because there's formality now, there's phones, there's tech, and you feel like as though you've got to fit within it. A good friend of mine, and he's my coach as well, said to me the other day back, he said, have you ever tried having a free day? I said, what do you mean? He said, have you ever tried just putting in your diary, free, nothing to do, nothing to plan, nothing to talk to, no actual, and you fill it with what you want to do. I was like, no, mate, not really. I've always allowed, I've always been in a position with my diary. Let's fill it. Fill the diary. Let's meet people, right? Let's fill it because we've got to be busy. But the reality is that bit you just say, having a free day is like, be kind with yourself and have a free day, right? Because there's no problem with it. Don't feel guilty. Just have one. And I've tried it. I'm trying. I'm taking steps to it. I did one the other day, and yeah, I still felt it, a bit, but I still had my free time,
Yeah, I think that's a constant doer, isn't it? We went to Cardiff this weekend and Dave, I was like, should we go here? Should we go here? And he was like, do you know what, George? Sometimes it's the not doing that is better than the doing. And I was
Yeah,
like,
that's
yeah,
fab.
you're going to have to walk me through that one. I'm
You're
going to,
gonna have to, can you step by step it, please? Yeah,
yeah, you're going to have to break that down.
because
But
it sounds
yeah.
great, but it
Yeah,
is.
it
Yeah,
does in concert. Yeah, white space, white space. I quite
yeah.
like looking at my diary and having that white space and going, wow, that's nice, because that's where you get your
Mm.
ideas. That's where you get your thoughts, and you can rejuvenate. It's essential, John.
Yeah. And I'm leaning into it. I'm
Mm.
definitely leaning into it. Like I said, I am a bottle of pop, but the bottle of pop is more. I've got to control the bottle sometimes. You know what I mean? Because otherwise it can explode. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I love that. Yeah, and actually, I love what he said. Is like slowing down to speed up. Right? That's exactly it. And I don't say this enough. And I think that it's not about. We spoke about it not being romantic love, but emotional love. I never say. I always say to my wife, "I love you," but I don't think I've ever really said it in a way that I guess taken on board like I mean it. I mean, my wife shows unforgiving love to everyone. She gives all her time away. And yeah, we've been together. She's my rock. She shows me unconditional love, and she shows unconditional love to other people. And she is a massive role model for me. And I hope when she listens to this, she gets that, because I really do mean it, and I don't say that enough. But she shows me love, and I hope I reciprocate that as best I can.
She enables you to do what you do, all your
She,
I all your business ideas and your work.
she does. You know what? She's always right. There's no two ways about it. I don't ever want to listen, but she's always right. But the fact that she's always right, and the fact that she's let me do what I've got to do, she knows me better than myself. And what is lovely, I'll share a little bit of a story that, we've not had a lot, and I'm not saying that, I'm on my bones, but we've not, since we went bust, there's not been a lot of money in the house, right? And you take the small wins. So, we had a carpet fitted, last 2 weeks ago, and that was the first time we've been able to have anything like that done in the house, for, like I said, 6, 7 years. So just that one moment and seeing her face as she walked down the steps, and just feeling, it just meant a lot to both of us, not because of the carpet, not because of the money, not because of anything else, but she could see that, all the bit that she's allowed me to do and we're starting to move in the right direction. But she hadn't let me do that, or allowed me the freedom to fail, or sign the things that we signed that went wrong. And she didn't have confidence in that we wouldn't be able to enjoy those moments. So, yeah, she's definitely, going back to that role model and showing she's just so giving. And that's what made me want to become a Catholic, really, because she's a really good Catholic lady, who just gives. So, yeah, a lot of outtakes. I got a lot to be thankful for. We found each other for a reason, and I'm very thankful for that.
She sounds awesome. I will
Mm.
make sure that I do not edit any of this end part. And what's her
Yeah.
name?
Anne-Marie.
Anne-Marie,
Yeah.
that's right. I was trying to remember her name because I've met her once in a dinner years and years and years ago.
Yeah.
So I think this podcast is dedicated to Anne-Marie today.
Thank you. That's lovely. And she'll, out of everything I ever talk through or do, yeah, I never dedicate enough to Anne-Marie. So yeah, that'd be lovely.
John, today's been amazing. I've cried through most of it. I don't know why. You've touched me.
Thank you.
But what I really admire today is your honesty, but also, as you mentioned in the podcast about suicide, and not enough men talk, not enough men share, and not enough men speak. And I hope today this will inspire someone to speak, that there's a strong man talking about his feelings, talking about love. And it's been really touching. See, I'm going again.
Yeah.
So thank you. Thank you very, very much.
Hopefully, we don't edit this either, but you've been a massive inspiration for me.
Thank you.
And the, especially over the last few years, but before that, you being you've just got to continue being you, because you're an inspiring person for everyone. So thank you ever so much for letting me come on. And I totally appreciate, your time as well. So thank you.
Thank you. Amazing. Cheers. There I was, a little bit choked up and a little bit embarrassed. But I kept the compliment in. I think it's important for us to accept compliments. It all adds to our pot. And that's why I kept it in. Nothing to do with my rather large ego at all. Oh, thank you so much for listening. This has been a real treat. Please give me your feedback on how you found this conversation. You can contact me on Inspired George on Instagram, or you can just drop me an email at georgina@georginajones.com. And as I promised, this podcast is for you, Anne-Marie. Until the next time, share the love. Bye.